Hello and welcome to Business Unmuted, a business discussion live on LinkedIn and shared on platforms including YouTube, Spotify and Apple Podcasts. As ever, we're kindly sponsored by Virtue BMW, which is part of Gateshead-based Virtue Motors PLC. So if you're in the market for a new, used or fleet vehicle, its dealerships are in Stockton, Durham, Sunderland, Malton or York. Later on, we'll hear from a government minister and an MP from our region about the investments in levelling up. But first, it's been a big week in the news. Long queues at service stations across the country for fuel. And after a bumper period of recovery, there are now whispers of an approaching stagflation scenario, the dreaded combination of poor growth and rising prices. Joining me in the studio today is the Chief Executive of one of the North's largest charities, David Stockton. And down the line we have Gill Hunter, the Managing Director of an award-winning law firm and the editor of one of the most trusted business news sites, Cunliffe. So let's start with Gill Hunter from Square One Law. Gill, welcome. Nice to see you. And it's nice to see you because since I last spoke to you, you are now working for an award-winning firm. Square One Law has won Corporate Law Firm of the Year at the North East Dealmakers Awards. Obviously, you'd be proud of that.
Yeah, we're absolutely delighted, Graham. I mean, for us, winning the award, it's not just about us, it's about our clients, and it's the work that our clients have entrusted us with that's enabled us to win that award. We've been involved in numerous deals over the last year in particularly difficult circumstances, as everybody's aware. So it's great to have that recognition of what we've achieved, because some of the transactions we've been involved in have not only got significance for the clients, but also broader significance for the regional economy. Things like the Turntide deal that we did, which is bringing electrification to the region in a very coordinated way, and should make this a centre for electrification within the UK.
And of course, Gill, as well as that, £100 million of inward investment to the region in that deal alone.
Absolutely. It's a US-backed deal. And they really see this region as a place that can offer them a centre for their operations within the UK, and that's brilliant to see.
Now, just to ask you about the landscape for deals, because you won this great award as Dealmaker of the Year, but half of that year, at least, was in lockdown or restrictions. How did you manage to make sure you kept the connectivity of your firm to keep getting the market going? How did you do that?
Graham, it was a huge team effort. I'm very lucky that I've got a great team. Everybody is bought into what we want to do and what we want to try to achieve. And it all came down to relationships. We've got exceptionally good, strong relationships as an internal team, but also with our clients. And what we did was we worked with our clients, particularly in the first 6 months, at looking at what they needed during that time and how we could provide it. So it was one of the things that was recognised when we received the award, was the support that we provided to businesses during COVID on a no charging basis. You know, we helped people with funding applications. We shared our experiences of how to manage remote working, and we learned a lot from our clients as well. But we did things like, and you were involved in them, setting up support groups, fellowship groups for senior leaders to be able to talk through these unprecedented problems that they were facing. And we even lobbied for support for businesses in the Northeast into the channel.
Yeah, your part, the senior leadership of the firm was very vocal when it thought the government was getting it wrong. It wrote to the government and said so, but it didn't do so in a sort of offensive way. It gave practical advice and went straight into ministers' inboxes by just through the front door, really. Let's bring Philip in because he gave you the award. Philip from Insider Media, you run these awards and you've got a great reputation as a business platform with its finger on the pulse. How did these Dealmaker Awards come about this year? Was it an unusual event to pull everyone together after lockdown?
Yeah, well, it was unusual in the fact that we were able to hold it in person. Sadly, last year we weren't able to do that. So it was great to be able to have the awards once again. And we had a packed room in the Hilton Newcastle Gateshead. It was the first event we've held in the region since the pandemic. So it was a really special night for us to be there. And I have to say, Graham, I think, and I hope Jill will back me up on this, there was a sort of palpable sense of joy that we were all back in a room celebrating again. And that's really the heart of the awards for us. Not only, we give people an opportunity to win awards, of course, and that's great for people who win them, but it's actually about getting the corporate finance community together and talking together and who knows, looking at future deals down the line. So it's a really important night for us and for the region, and it went really well. Thank you.
Jill, give us a temperature check. Where do you think the economy is in terms of momentum for deals, momentum for transactions, and the general positivity or negativity of your client groups at the moment?
Well, if you'd asked me that 12 months ago, I would have given you a very shaky response around, I'm not really sure. It's very difficult to tell. But at the moment, you can only speak from our experience. People want to do things. People are fed up of not doing anything, of the period of stasis that we've been through, and want to just get on with things. So we have completed numerous deals over the last few months, and we've got a lot in the pipeline as well. So people are still active. So I would say I'm cautiously optimistic about the future, particularly around corporate finance deals. It does seem that people want to do deals and are keen to get things done. And that's great.
I would share that assessment. In my client portfolio, which is smaller than yours, but nevertheless has business owners of a relatively large size as well, I found a lot of them returning to work, getting into their workplace, looking at opportunities. Some of them who you might have expected. I've got one particular client who's in his 70s, very well-known, wealthy individual who's decided to go on the acquisition trail. He said, well, I'm sick of being in lockdown and in go slow. We're going to go on the acquisition trail. And it seems to be that getting back in the workplace has fired people up rather than slowed it down.
Yeah, I agree. And I think there are also people who perhaps were thinking about selling their businesses previously, and the pandemic has accelerated that process, and they thought, actually, now is the time for me to move on. So we've been doing a real mix of sales and acquisitions. But I agree, everybody being able to, Philip picked up on there, people being able to get together does make a real difference. And it's been really good for our team, for us to be able to get together as a business. In our new office in Darlington last week, we all got together, the whole firm, but also for us to be able to get out and see clients and talk to them face to face about what they're doing and how they're approaching business.
Philip, I think that the people I meet are sometimes frustrated that there are constant new obstacles. I went into my local council to transact some business, and I had to make an appointment because no one was working. We then have you organising a meeting, and then you have to work out how to get to it because there's a petrol shortage. So these are possibly temporary obstacles, but people are chomping at the bit to get over those obstacles and get their economy fired up in their sectors. What kind of thing is this over-optimistic on my part? What kind of thing are you hearing?
No, I absolutely agree. I mean, we speak to businesses all the time, and yes, it's likely to be a somewhat rocky road ahead in the next sort of year as we come out of the pandemic and everything opens up again. But I see lots of business with plenty of resolve and a clear desire to make positive growth plans as we come out of the pandemic. And obviously certain sectors, hospitality and leisure in particular, have been severely hit. But others, manufacturers, we speak to a lot of manufacturers in the region and across the country that seem to be coming out of it in pretty good shape, actually. And what the impact of the termination of furlough will be is a little bit uncertain at the moment and difficult to predict. And there'll be other casualties, I'm sure. But a great many businesses have weathered the storm and are stronger and more robust, I think, than ever. Some have obviously diversified into new markets, found different income streams, new customers. Many have been forced to adapt to new working practices, of course, and altering their investment plans. But I think by streamlining their offering, looking at new markets, it's really given them, as you say, an impetus to move forward.
Philip, you also, as Insider Media, run these awards for property. We talked about the deal makers a moment ago, but you've run property awards in the recent weeks in the northeast of England and Yorkshire, of course. Tell us what your temperature check is on what people are saying on the property market.
Yeah, again, very, very similar actually, Graham. Obviously the pandemic, there was quite a lot of not stagnation, but a lot of fear that things weren't going to get done. But the construction industry kept on working on developments, and there have been a lot of new schemes coming into the market. So the property awards sort of look at the full range of activity across the northeast. But it was one striking thing we saw, certainly within the submissions we got and the eventual winners. There's a lot of activity around Tees Valley, and obviously that's been stimulated by Ben Houchin and the Tees Valley combined authority, the lot of investments they've been doing, and that's really galvanized that whole part of the region, I think, and it's going to be very interesting to see how that develops in the future.
I think the Freeport and the Treasury announcements were certainly instrumental, and I know, Gill, you decided your firm to invest more. You've just alluded to that. So but we've got to make sure that Tees Valley, we're going to talk about it with the Minister in a minute, isn't just the sort of petri dish of levelling up. We've got to make sure the levelling up happens across the north, haven't we?
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree, and I don't want necessarily just focus on Tees Valley. There've been lots of other property and other deals happening all over the region. And I think the other thing to say about the Tees Valley and the northeast is it's becoming much more apparent to me that the northeast is a player in the Northern Powerhouse, where I think, but before, a few years ago, when there was the first idea of the Northern Powerhouse, it was a slightly forgotten a relation in the north. But I think it's really powered front and centre actually now, and it's news for the future.
That's good to hear. Gill, have you got any comments on this before we move on?
Yeah, I just to echo what Phil said, I think the Tees Valley in particular has really come to the fore. I mean, it's one of the reasons why when we were looking at expanding our office in the Tees Valley, we chose Darlington because of the movement of the government departments there, the fact it's on the East Coast Main Line. It's certainly going to be a centre, I'm hoping, for business growth in the future.
Well, some of us that are here hope that as well. But thank you very much. Thank you both for joining us. Gill, congratulations on your award. And Phil, keep connecting people and keep giving them awards. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Graham.
We're going to turn to something else now and welcome our studio guest, who is David Stockton, Chief Executive of the North East Air Ambulance. Now, David, many people will know and think the air ambulance is a fundamentally important charity. Quite a few people ask, why is it a charity at all, and we don't have air ambulances. Tell us, you've heard the two of them talking about their positivity about the economy. When it comes to corporate giving and so on, how have you fared?
Like many charities, we've had a difficult period basically during the pandemic. It was really encouraging to listen to both Phil and to Gill there basically around the positivity in the area, because clearly in the charity sector we're very reliant on that buzz and that confidence that's generated in the area. And we cover both northwest and northeast, so we've got an eye on both areas at the moment. But certainly when we look to our own confidence levels, we have, during that pandemic, we'd already committed to updating 2 helicopters, moving to a head office, so we'd had huge commitment. But basically that's, a lot of businesses may have gone into a really crazy time to be doing all of those things, a massive expenditure. But we are leaping out every day in faith, basically, because we have to look to the positivity of the businesses in the area to fund that growth and that positivity for us, because we're no different to any other charity in the third sector, is the fact that we can only prosper and we can only go forward with the help of a very vibrant economy and a good jobs market and thriving businesses. So we have a very clear look at what's going on in that market, and we're very very respectful, and we're very thankful basically that's quite buoyant at the moment and looking forwards.
Let's hear the fundamentals. From businesses will want to know the fundamentals of the air
Sure.
ambulance. So how many helicopters have you got, and how often do they fly, and what
Okay.
kind of are the times of operations? Do they close down at night? Give us a feel for what the operation's like.
So basically, if I go back a step from that, basically as to what the air ambulance does, because the air ambulance is not just a quick taxi, although we clearly do that. We are a very quick means of getting people in need to hospital as and when that's needed, but we actually do it the other way around. So we bring the emergency department forward to wherever that trauma happens to be. So whether that be a stabbing, a hanging, a fall, a cardiac arrest, a car crash, a motorbike accident, we will go and bring the emergency department onto the scene. And what I mean by that is that we will bring a very well qualified consultant and a very experienced paramedic right to the heart of that event, basically where it is. So we will carry blood on board, we will have lots of equipment and drugs basically to allow us to treat them, basically in getting the critical care they need at the earliest intervention that we can. Because what's been proven is the earliest that we can intervene with a high trauma case, the better success rate that we have, and that's essentially what we do. So the ambulance is essential to get into some of our areas, but what's really critical and what's unique about what we do is the skill level and the equipment that we bring basically when we bring that incredible asset basically to the scene.
On the ambulance itself, who are volunteers, who are paid?
We pay for all of our team basically, so all of our team. Our paramedics work with us full time, so they're with us. They've committed to full time work with us. Our doctors are a mixture of emergency doctor consultants at your local hospitals, NHS workers, where they work full time, and they work for us on top of that. So incredibly heavy workload, as you imagine, basically with all the pandemic and all the work they've been going through. They really are committing quite a lot of time to us, and we're very thankful of that. Or they may well be members of the military, so we have military doctors that work with us as well. So they'll work again full time, basically in the military deployments, and then they'll come to us. There'll be 1 or 2, 3 days a week, a month, basically, that they'll be coming and working with us on there. So we have quite a large pool of doctors that work with us to cover the length of time that we have. To answer your first question, when do we operate? So we have 2 helicopters operational every day, one based in Langwathby near Penrith, and one based in Early Nuke, basically it's just outside of Teesside Airport. So between the 2 of them, they will cover the whole of the area, basically. So they'll be operational every time, generally between about 8 and 8, basically, in the morning, excuse me, till 8 in the evening. We then don't stop, though, because on a number of those evenings, basically, in the northeast, we cover 4 evenings of the week, and in the northwest, 2 evenings of the week. We'll put those same resources out on our car system, and when we can't fly, basically, to get out and about and basically have a car service. So they're exactly the same service, but by road as opposed to being by air.
Well, it's a fantastic service. I noticed our 2 other guests looking on and admiring, and they do a great job, and I'm very pleased that you've been able to weather the pandemic.
We have.
And you're going to take your service from strength to strength. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks very much, Graham.
Thank you. And now finally, with levelling up, a hot topic on the government's agenda, I spoke to Paul Howell, MP for Sedgefield, this morning. He recently hosted the Minister for Science, Research and Innovation, George Freeman, on a visit to Net Park in Sedgefield. First, though, I asked Mr Freeman what the effect of a £50 million investment by Durham County Council into Net Park will have on our region.
Well, I think it'll have a fantastic effect on the future. It's a sign of the long-term commitment to the park. It's a sign of what's going on in the northeast, from Darlington, Teesside, Durham, Newton Aycliffe, up to Newcastle and up into Northumberland. The truth is, the northeast was the engineering and coal workforce of the empire. It's becoming again an smart engineering, advanced manufacturing, science and technology workhouse of 21st century Britain. And I think anyone internationally would be looking and saying, hang on, this area is starting to really lead in the technologies of tomorrow, and that's very exciting for all the residents who live here.
Paul, we saw you there next to George Freeman at Net Park. What do you think that the investment in Net Park means towards the future of the economy in your patch, Sedgefield?
I think it's incredible what's going on at Net Park, Graham. I mean, as you know, the council just committed to this £50 million investment to extend it to Net Park 3. And what that does is, for businesses that are existing on Net Park, it gives them extra capacity for them to grow into space where they want to. It also gives more opportunity for new businesses to come in, I'm delighted that everybody's telling me that right here, right now, Net Park is full of great and outstanding businesses.
The same time that George Freeman was visiting, Michael Gove, the new Minister for Levelling Up, was visiting this area. That's the Tees Valley part of the North East. What is levelling up, and has the government got a narrative that backs up what's happening?
I think that there's a narrative that feeds through so many themes, Graham. I think one of the problems with the phrase levelling up is it's very easy to knock, because you can find out the things you haven't done, but there are so many good things that will do that all feed into it. Whether that's about infrastructure, whether it's about places like Net Park there. I mean, George, as an example, in one of the conversations we had, talked about when you're putting new train stations in. That could be in the Durham Dales, or it could be at Ferryhill Station. But what you've got is the opportunity for a little eco-structure to build around that train station and have little businesses that suddenly grow and help the local community as well.
It's very different train stations that you're talking about, which the public would understand, and science investment, which George Freeman was looking at. Can the two be in the same ballpark?
Everything has to be in the same ballpark, Graham. It's not one thing to one person. Levelling up, if it levels up for somebody in Sedgefield, it might not level up for somebody in Trimdon with exactly the same, with completely different things that they want to see. Or somebody in Wheatley Hill, or somebody in Herwith, or even further afield. This is about everybody seeing what they want from levelling up, not just what the government sees as a macro level issue.
This programme is recorded in Tees Valley, and Tees Valley clearly has been a very big success for the Conservative government politically, with the number of MPs and the mayor being re-elected. Is the government sufficiently focusing on other areas of the north of England to count levelling up as a national policy?
I would say so, Graham. I mean, I deal in my constituency nicely sits half in, or maybe it's a third in the Tees Valley and 2/3 in County Durham. And I know the agendas that's going on in County Durham. That's going on. As recently as yesterday, I was at a meeting on the Levelling Up Fund in County Durham to try to decide and make decisions as to where we think that should be applied.
This week has been a difficult week for the government. The Labour Party is having its conference and promising a number of things like getting rid of business rates, which a lot of businesses will be pleased about. And it's difficult for people to get petrol and fuel at fuel stations. You're on the Business Select Committee. Do you think that the government at the moment is getting everything right? Because there seems to be a lot of pushback, and people's experiences on the ground might not think that it's all going well.
I think you've always got the opportunity for pushback on whatever's happening at any time, Graham. I think the fuel crisis, if that's the right phrase. I've driven through Darlington this morning. I drove through last night. There was no queues at any petrol stations. I think it's very much driven by a spike in demand of people panicking due to media overspin of an issue. Unfortunately, yes, there's issues. Yes, we need to get more HGV drivers on the road and to improve that situation. But I think it's very difficult for the government to react to a spike and be blamed for something like that.
The business criticism of the government appears to be that it didn't plan Brexit properly, and this HGV issue has been known for a long time. Is there some legitimacy in criticising the government for not making adequate Brexit plans?
I don't think so. And from the information I see, Graham, the HGV driver crisis is not a UK crisis, it's a European crisis. There are many countries across Europe that are in exactly the same space as us, but you will always get people from various vested interests or their own perspectives claiming that anything and everything that's not right at the moment is Brexit, and clearly that's not the case.
Well, it was good to see you out and about with the Minister in your constituency, and I know you're pretty well connected with all the businesses that are investing in your constituency, and thank you for coming in to talk to us on Business Unmuted.
Thanks, Graham. It's a pleasure to be here, and I have to just put a final note. George Freeman as an MP, as a minister in there, was so impressive. He knew his stuff, and it was a delight to see him at Net Park.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you for watching Business Unmuted this week. Another programme live Wednesday, 5 o'clock next week.